Imagine loving someone so deeply that their sudden loss completely resets your life, only to realize the person meant to comfort you is hiding a secret that could destroy society's rules forever. When John Stirling dies out of nowhere in the quiet hills of Scotland, Francesca Bridgerton is not just left as a young widow, she is thrust into a sea of silence, guilt, and an undeniable attraction that changes everything we thought we knew about her story. The silence that follows John's death is heavier than any scandal London could ever brew. Francesca did not choose the glittering ballrooms or the loud, chasing courtships that her brothers and sisters loved so much. She chose a quiet life in Scotland, wrapped in soft piano music and simple days beside a man who truly understood her calm nature. But when John passes away suddenly, that peaceful world collapses in a single moment. In the Regency era, losing a husband means entering a strict, almost suffocating period of mourning. You are expected to wear dark clothes, step away from society, and keep your pain hidden behind polite nods and quiet tears. For Francesca, who already keeps her feelings locked deep inside, this grief becomes a quiet prison. The world around her keeps moving, but inside the cold walls of the Kilmartin estate, time completely stops. She is left holding the memory of a love that was short, sweet, and suddenly stolen, leaving her to figure out who she really is when the one person who truly got her is gone. As the heavy gray fog rolls over the Scottish hills, the reality of being a young widow settles in with terrifying weight. Society has very specific rules for women who lose their husbands, treating grief like a public performance with strict timelines and expectations. But Francesca does not know how to perform her pain for others. She does not scream or break down in public like the drama-loving members of the ton might expect. Instead, she retreats into a deep, heavy quiet that worries everyone around her. Every room in the estate still holds John's presence, his unread books on the desk, his empty chair by the fire, and the silent piano that no longer plays their shared melodies. Living in that house feels like living with a ghost, where every small reminder serves as a sharp needle of pain. She finds herself trapped between holding onto his memory and drowning in the total stillness of her new reality. The pressure to remain composed while her whole heart is broken creates an unbearable tension, making every single day feel like an endless walk through a dark room with no door in sight. The isolation only grows deeper as letters from London begin to arrive, filled with sweet words from her family that cannot quite reach the dark place where she is stuck. Violet Bridgerton writes with a mother's deep worrying, sensing that her quiet daughter is fading away in the cold northern estate. Yet, Francesca cannot bring herself to leave the place where she last saw John alive, fearing that moving back to London means leaving him behind forever. The days blend together in a fog of black silk gowns, quiet meals, and long walks along the cold shore. People think she is strong because she does not cry out loud, but in truth, she is just completely numb. She sits alone with her thoughts, wondering if her heart will ever feel anything again, or if she is destined to spend the rest of her life as a quiet memory of the girl who once played music in the sun. This total emotional freeze sets the stage for the storm that is about to hit her quiet world. When the heavy silence finally becomes too much to bear, a new kind of presence enters the empty halls of the estate. Enter Michaela Stirling. Michaela is not just John's cousin who inherits his title, land, and heavy responsibilities. She is also the one person who shares the exact same deep pain over losing John. But behind Michaela's sad eyes lies a dangerous secret that has been quietly growing since the moment they first met. She has been in love with Francesca for a long time, hiding those forbidden feelings out of love and respect for John while he was alive. Now, as she steps into the estate to take care of the family business and protect Francesca, the air between them changes completely. The house is no longer just filled with the quiet grief of the past. It is now charged with an intense, unspoken feeling that neither of them knows how to handle. The tension inside the estate grows thicker with every passing day as the line between shared comfort and forbidden attraction begins to blur. Michaela tries her absolute best to act as a proper guardian and friend, taking over the endless legal paperwork and management of the land that John left behind. But every time she looks at Francesca in her dark mourning clothes, the weight of her long-kept secret becomes almost too heavy to carry. She feels a deep, burning guilt for even having these feelings while the memory of John is still so fresh in the air. Michaela wants nothing more than to wipe away Francesca's tears and pull her out of the darkness, yet she knows that showing her true heart could shock society and push Francesca away forever. This constant fight between her loyalty to her dead cousin and her intense love for his young widow creates a quiet, dangerous energy in the house, where a single glance across an empty room says far more than any spoken word ever could. As weeks turn into months, the two women find themselves drawn to each other in ways that neither can fully explain or control. They start spending late nights by the dim fireplace, talking about John at first, but slowly shifting toward their own deepest fears, hopes, and secrets. In Michaela, Francesca finds someone who does not ask her to put on a fake smile or act like everything is okay. Michaela understands the depth of the loss because she feels it too, creating a rare safe space where Francesca can finally let her guard down. But as their emotional connection deepens, the physical space between them seems to vanish. Simple moments like Michaela handing Francesca a cup of tea, or their fingers accidentally brushing against each other as they turn the page of a book begin to spark an undeniable electric charge. Francesca, who always thought love was quiet and gentle like the music she plays on the piano, suddenly feels a chaotic, terrifying wave of emotion that she has never experienced before. The confusion inside Francesca's mind grows into an exhausting internal battle that keeps her awake through the long Scottish nights. She begins to realize that her heart is beating faster not just from grief, but from the fiery presence of the woman sitting across from her every single day. Feeling this kind of spark while wearing a black morning gown fills her with the intense sense of shame, making her wonder if she is somehow betraying John's memory by feeling alive again. She tries to force herself to push Michaela away, hiding behind cold manners and spending long hours alone in her room, but the pull is simply too strong to ignore. Every time Michaela leaves the room, the estate feels cold and lifeless again. Every time she returns, the room lights up with a dangerous warmth. Francesca is trapped between the safe, quiet love of her past and an unexpected, overwhelming passion that threatens to break every rule she has ever known. Word eventually reaches London that the young, widowed Countess of Kilmartin is spending all her time isolated in the far north with her late husband's cousin, starting small whispers among the gossip-loving elite. While the town does not yet know the true nature of the emotional storm brewing in Scotland, Mama Violet Bridgerton senses from Francesca's brief, tense letters that something profound is shifting. Violet knows her daughter better than anyone, and she recognizes that Francesca is standing on the edge of a choice that will define the rest of her life. Back in the Highlands, the peaceful bubble is about to burst as the changing seasons force both women to face reality. They cannot stay hidden in this remote castle forever, pretending the rest of the world does not exist. The time is fast approaching when they will have to leave the safety of their quiet grief and step back into the bright, unforgiving light of London society, where their secret feelings will face the ultimate test. When the carriage finally rolls through the iron gates of London, the overwhelming noise of the city hits Francesca like a physical blow. Stepping out of the quiet Scottish mist and directly into the brilliant, golden light of Mayfair ballrooms feels like stepping onto a battlefield without any armor. The gossip sheets edited by Lady Whistledown have already been dropping subtle hints about the young widowed countess and her long stay in the north with the new holder of the Kilmartin title. Every aristocratic eye in the room locks onto Francesca the moment she steps through the archway, scanning her dark silk dress for any sign of weakness or hidden scandal. But what the curious crowd does not see is the silent communication happening across the floor. Michaela stands near the edge of the ballroom, looking sharp and commanding, yet her eyes never leave Francesca for more than a few seconds. The simple act of existing in the same crowded space creates a magnetic tension that makes the air feel thick and difficult to breathe. The social pressure reaches a boiling point when society matrons begin treating Francesca as a prize to be won once again. Unmarried gentlemen approach her with practiced smiles and rehearsed condolences, eager to court a wealthy, beautiful young widow with a powerful title attached to her name. Watching these men crowd around Francesca sparks a sharp, protective fire inside Michaela that she can barely contain. She has to stand by and watch propriety take over, forced to act like nothing more than a polite family friend while her heart burns with jealousy and frustration. Meanwhile, Francesca feels entirely suffocated by the attention. The fake laughter, the loud classical music, and the hollow compliments of the ton feel like years away from the honest, raw connection she built with Michaela during those dark nights in Scotland. Every polite dance she is forced to give to a stranger only highlights the massive void that only one specific person can fill. Late one evening, away from the glittering chandeliers and watching eyes, the hidden truth finally explodes in the quiet shadows of a secluded garden terrace. The exhaustion of hiding their feelings behind fake smiles and polite distance breaks down every wall they built to protect themselves. Michaela confronts Francesca about the persistent suitors, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger, desperation, and total honesty. In that breathless moment, the careful silence they kept for months shatters completely. Words that were buried deep under layers of guilt and societal fear are finally spoken out loud into the cool night air. Francesca, overwhelmed by the sudden release of all her trapped emotions, stops fighting the truth she has been running from. The intense realization hits her with total clarity. Her feeling for Michaela is not a fleeting shadow of grief or a temporary weakness, but a powerful, undeniable force that will forever change the course of her life. The immediate aftermath of their confession leaves both women standing at a terrifying crossroads with no easy way forward. Admitting their love to each other does not magically erase the rigid rules of the Regency era or the massive scandal that would erupt if the truth ever came to light. A romance between two women in high society is not just frowned upon, it is something that could completely destroy their reputations, strip away their social standing, and ruin the Bridgerton family name forever. Yet, going back to the way things were is now completely impossible. They have crossed a line from which there is no return, leaving them with an impossible choice. They must decide whether to hide their passion in total secrecy, risk everything to build a life together away from the judgmental eyes of London, or let the cruel expectations of society tear them apart before their story even truly begins. Asterisk. The unbearable weight of secrecy forces Francesca and Michaela to make a choice that will forever shatter their quiet lives. Standing together in the dim lighting of the study, the grand expectations of high society feel like distant dust compared to the raw truth hanging in the air. Michaela offers a way out, a quiet, permanent escape back to the remote, misty hills of Scotland where they can live free from the prying eyes of Lady Whistledown and the strict judgment of the ton. But Francesca knows that running away means abandoning her family and living in constant fear of discovery. The quiet girl who once only wished to play her piano in peace is now forced to stand in the center of a storm, realizing that true courage isn't about hiding from the world, but daring to choose your own happiness when everything around you tells you to surrender. When Mama Violet Bridgerton enters the room, her sharp maternal intuition immediately cuts through the heavy atmosphere. She has watched her daughter transform from a grieving widow into a woman carrying a burden far too heavy for one heart to bear. In a deeply emotional conversation, Violet does not offer simple platitudes or rigid societal rules. Instead, she shares her own understanding of love, loss, and the unpredictable paths the heart takes when healing from total heartbreak. Seeing the unspoken bond between Francesca and Michaela, Violet offers a soft, unconditional acceptance that gives Francesca the strength she so desperately needs. This quiet blessing from the heart of the Bridgerton family changes everything, turning what felt like a shameful secret into a powerful, unbreakable truth worth fighting for. Armed with newfound clarity, Francesca and Michaela decide to face the unforgiving world on their own terms, rejecting the traditional life society tries to force upon them. Rather than playing by the rigid rules of the marriage mart or hiding away in shame, they form an alliance built on mutual respect, deep devotion, and a shared future that honors John's memory without sacrificing their own souls. They navigate the ballrooms of London not as helpless victims of gossip, but as two women who have claimed their own destiny. Every shared glance across a crowded room and every subtle touch of their hands becomes a quiet declaration of freedom, proving that love after loss is not a betrayal of the past, but the ultimate act of survival and renewal. As the curtain falls on this dramatic chapter, Francesca stands transformed, no longer defined by the tragedy of being a young widow or the quiet shadow of her former self. The story of Francesca and Michaela becomes the most daring chapter in the Bridgerton saga, redefining what it truly means to find love in a world built on strict expectations. Their journey shows that out of the darkest grief, an extraordinary light can emerge, one that breaks the mold of tradition and paves the way for a love that refuses to be silenced. Francesca steps into her future with her head held high, ready to embrace the unpredictable, beautiful life she has chosen to build with the only person who truly holds her heart. Asterisk, as the final echoes of music fade from the London ballrooms, the true legacy of Francesca and Michaela's journey begins to take shape. They do not seek permission from the high society that once tried to dictate their lives, nor do they live in the shadows of fear anymore. Instead, they rewrite the rules of their own world, turning the Grand Kilmartin estate into a sanctuary built on deep trust, shared strength, and a love that survived the darkest storm. Francesca no longer plays her piano to escape reality. She plays to celebrate the life she actively chose. Every note carries the memory of the past, but every melody now belongs entirely to her future with Michaela. This powerful conclusion leaves the entire Bridgerton world changed forever, delivering a story that goes far beyond a simple romance. It proves that grief does not have to be the end of your story, but rather the difficult beginning of discovering who you truly are when all expectations fall away. Francesca transformed from a quiet girl hiding from the world into a fearless woman who fought for her own happiness against all odds. As the screen fades to black, one message stands clear above all else. True love is not about conforming to what society demands, but having the courage to embrace the unexpected bond that saves your heart when you thought all hope was lost.